Hey, welcome back. This is HTTP nodes part 2, and today we're going to cover the post node. So the post node is sort of a counterpoint to the get node, in that the get node, which is linked in the video description if you haven't seen the get node video, it gets information from a web server. So you get information from Facebook, Google, wherever you want to go, the NEOS website, etc. The post node will post data to a web server. So when you write a blog post, upload a picture, or something like that, it usually comes in the form of a post. Not always, but sometimes it comes in the form of a post request. So today we're gonna use the post node to post some content from NEOS to a web server, and then prove that the web server has saved that content by retrieving it again and showing it in NEOS. So we're going to do a post, which will save the data to the web server, and then a get, which will get that data back. Let's get going. I'm going to talk about some web server HTTP things as we go, but let's get going. So I'm hopping over here into Smooth POV, and I've got my logic step out here, and we're going to go ahead and start by spawning out the post node, which you can find in network, post string. Now, post string is much like the get string node in that it has 3 outputs, which start with on sent, which is when the post request is sent, on response, which is when we get a response, on error, which is any errors we get, the content, and the status code. So exactly the same on the right here. Where it differs is actually on the left. So on the left here, you'll see that there is some stuff that you'll see from the get string, which is the request and the URL. But there's also string, which is the content of your post request, and media type, which is a MIME type for the content that you'll be using. If you're not familiar with MIME types, I'll put some information in the video description, but I'll be showing you what to put in that field, and it doesn't change that much. So today we're only going to be posting strings. Like I've said a few times, you can technically fund your way around making JSON. I don't recommend that for the beginners, but I have some people do it with some success in NEOS. JSON support will eventually come. It's on the roadmap for somewhere in NEOS's future. So we are going to now set up this post string so that it posts some data. Now I don't want people to worry about URLs or anything like that. I just want to let's get some data going. So for some data going, what we're going to actually do is construct a CSV string. Now CSV stands for comma separated values, and what it basically means is like a value and then a comma and then another value and then a comma, etc., etc., etc. If you've opened up an Excel sheet or like a workbook or anything like that, if you think of the columns as the values, and then the rows would be the lines, and that's how CSV works. So what we're going to do here is create a very basic CSV string. To do that, we're going to go to the string folder, and we're going to go to string join. String join joins pieces of data together with a separator. I haven't done a video on it separately, but it's quite simple. So let's get going. So it has operands and a separator. So we're going to set the separator here to comma. I did that by putting the tip of my logic tip into the input, holding primary and pulling out a ribbon, and then pushing secondary. And so now we've got a comma. I'm going to do the same here for the first operand, and we're going to put hello. And then for the second parameter, we're actually going to use my usernames. To do that, we're going to go to users, local user, and then user username. Local user goes into user username, and then user username goes into the second operand for string join. And then if we pull out on the output of string join a ribbon using primary, and for secondary here, you'll see it says hello prime. We can also add more operands here, so we're going to do that, and we're going to add the current time in UTC. So we're going to input UTC now. Let's move things down here a little bit. There we go. And then we need to convert this date time to a string. To do that, we can go to operators to string. And then there we go. We've got hello, comma, probable prime, comma, and then the date time in UTC. This is the data that we're going to post to the website. So we're going to then link this up to the content, which is the string input here, just below the URL. And then as we know that this media type is just a piece of text, we're going to set the media MIME type to text stroke plain. I'll put this in the video description as well, so don't worry about not being able to find it. It'll be in the video description. Text stroke plain, just like that. Now the last thing that we need to post something is a URL, and so I actually have one prepared off screen that I'm just going to pull in, and we're going to be using a service here called Henry's post test server. Let me just get that and double check. Yes, Henry's post test server v2. Now, Henry's post test server is run by a guy presumably called Henry. I'll put the URL here in the video description as well. And they run a site where you can create, it's actually quite funny, you can create a toilet and you can post stuff to it. When you post stuff to it, it's called a dump, and it's purely meant for testing. So I've gone to their website and I've created a toilet called Neos tutorial, and then if you put /post on the end, that's where you can post information to. The server will store that information, and the way that I've configured the Neos tutorial toilet, it will then respond with where that post is located. So I'm going to plug this into the URL. Again, it will automatically cast to a URL here. So you've got the string into a URL, and then we're actually ready to send our post. Now this won't actually do anything. It will let us know if it succeeded, but it won't actually do anything because we can't see the results. So we're going to recreate our write string setup from the get string tutorial. So for that, we're going to need actions write and a string variable, which we can find in variables storage string. So we're going to plug the on response into the top of the right, the content into the bottom of the right, which will turn it to a red one, plug the pink into the string, and then pull the string out for a display node. And then this will show us the response that we get. So we're going to hit pulse here, and you'll see that we get this. We get a post-test-server v2.com Neos tutorial D, which stands for dump, is quite comical. We'll just keep rolling with it. Then there's a randomly generated ID here, and then text. So this is the URL that we can find the data that we've just posted in. So to use this, we're actually going to hook it up such that it immediately does a GET request again to get that data. Let's do that. We're going to go to network. We're going to go to get string. And what we're going to do here is plug in the string result. Now, because we don't actually need the string result ever, we're just going to get the data immediately. We don't need this write setup, so I'm actually going to go ahead and remove it. Instead, what we're going to do is plug the on response into the request part of the get string node and the content into the URL, because the content that come out, as we just saw, was a URL. We actually do need that write setup. I should have just moved it along, but it's okay, we'll recreate it. Because what we want to do is then on response, write the result of the get request, which is triggered from the post request. And we'll write that into a variable again. Storage string. So what we now should see here is the following set of actions will happen. We will post to the Neos tutorial toilet on the post test server v2. It will save this data, the word hello, comma, my username, comma, the time in UTC now. It will return that from the web server as a URL where it's stored, and then we'll get where it's stored and write that to a string variable. So this demonstrates saving and retrieving of data. This is saving and this is retrieving. Let's do it. So we'll hit pulse here, and you can see it's worked. So this comes back in a big format, which kind of has a lot of information in it. Included is your IP address if you're worried about privacy. Use another URL, or set up your own server, etc. It's fine. Also, don't use anything sensitive here. There's no authentication set up on this server. You can set up authentication, I just don't recommend it. But you can see here that we've got some headers, some details about the request, but the most important thing is down here in the body, we have got hello, probable prime, and then the time which I sent the request. So what this proves is that the post test server took our request, it saved the data to its web server, and then when we got the URL back from the web server, we then got the data again from a separate web request, and then we saved it as a string. So I hope that helps you figure out how post string works. If you have any questions, do let me know. I'll put a bunch of URLs in the video description that talk about the URLs that you'll need, the MIME type that you'll need, as well as some information on HTTP post in general, MIME types in general, and the post test server v2 that we're using here. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.